once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful and utterly exhausted Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
You deserve to be tired after that 300th show marathon. And folks, did you see the size of that pretzel he ate?
And then Dan ordered a second one.
Oh, yeah, he had two. Not only is he a rat bastard, but he's a selfish rat bastard because he did not share them with anybody.
I didn't.
You ought to be ashamed.
I didn't.
Oh, by the way, I got to give a warning out.
Oh, what's that?
This podcast, there will be math.
I was told there would be no math.
I'm telling you, there will be. And oftentimes...
I will not be involved in the math.
Well, you're going to have to because I can't do it by myself. But we'll deal with math when we get to freaking.
Okay. And how are you doing today, Joe?
We'll get to that when we get to freaking.
You know, you always say that now. That's kind of become your new thing.
Well, you know, I figure, you know, there's three definite parts of the show. There's four actually. The introduction where we just blather on and on about, you know, how bad it is to put icy hot on after kicking the cock and things like that. And then we get into the meat of the show where we actually talk comics or whatever.
We talk about comics?
And then you do the ads. And then after that's the eBay freaking geeking stuff. So
we do ads?
This way, if we, like you like to say, foreshadow the beginning, people won't be, you know, I'm sure there's people like, screw this, I'm just going to freaking and geeking. Or people that just go to, you know, I think I'll just listen to the main podcast, skip the ads. I'm pretty sure nobody goes to just the eBay stuff, although we do some good stuff there too. But
by the way, Joe, we now have more episodes than the Red Green Show.
Oh man, that is, yeah.
We actually have more episodes in the original run of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Well, that's
in
good.
Australia.
Yeah, that's because, you know, they went nuts. I always love how Kevin Smith talks about when he was doing the Clerks cartoon. You know, everybody was all excited to do it, and then they got Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then they became kind of like the afterthought. And ABC, of course, in typical dunderheaded fashion,
flooded the market.
Oh, everything was, yeah. I mean, the interesting ones I thought were like the theme ones, where they had like the WWE people, or they had the celebrity ones, things like that. And then it just, you know, by that time everything died, and, you know, Kevin Smith talks about where he was thinking of going to what, Comedy Central, where he would have been the big fish in a little pond. Instead, he went to ABC, where he was like a amoeba in a shark tank. You know, so we never, and the episodes were good. I mean, I have the tape and I've watched them, including the ones that weren't, and it gave Charles Barkley something to do. But after that, it just kind of, yeah.
Well, and then ABC ran them out of order, and they didn't publicize them. And
nope.
Although, you know, talking about all this stuff that flooding the market, there is a new Tilting at Windmills over on The Beat.
And well, wouldn't you know, it talks about Marvel, who's owned by who.
And
Disney. You don't think it's about flooding the market with shit, do you?
Well, Marvel's always done that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've talked about that ad nauseum.
Marvel's always done that, but he talks about how, and he says, you know, the death of the Marvel Zombie, et cetera, et cetera. I still think the Marvel Zombie died around the time that Marvel did Marvel UK and Marvel 2099. That's when I stopped seeing people. You know, I was working at Schindler's, and people who would come in and just go down the Marvel rack and just grab one of each book, they quit doing that, and some of them just quit reading. And he, in his article, I don't know, maybe Brian Hibbs has been listening to the show, because I talked about how Marvel, hey, look, Black Panther sold real well. Here's 2 more Black Panther books. Doctor Strange is finally selling well. Here's another 2 Doctor Strange books.
Mm-hmm.
Here's, the Avengers does well. Here's 7 Avengers books. And we're just going to put the Avengers on everything. And, now with this resurrection, the X-Men are coming back. How many X-Men books are there going to be? There are at least 12 now.
Yeah, and I think the only ones that I'm into are, I'm going to try gold and silver, or is it black or red?
Blue and gold.
Blue and gold. Blue and gold. They should have done silver and gold, then we could sing it.
That's right.
So I'll try those, and I think I picked up Cable just because I always liked Cable as a character. Old Man Logan I'll probably stick with for a while, but I don't know if you could count that as an X-Men book. But, yeah, it's crazy, it's something I complained about ever since Avengers split into like 500 titles. It's just not fun anymore. It's just too expensive. I mean, I've been complaining probably since podcast 1 about $4.99 books or $3.99 books even. That's expensive. And when we did this here podcast, I mean, wasn't it gas went up to like $5 and then came back down, and you're like, what am I going to spend $40 on 10 comics or on a tank of gas?
Yeah.
And it's just, it's just not like Marvel's learning. I mean, for a while it was kind of like, why did they publish this book? They're just throwing crap on the wall to see if it sticks. I can sort of respect that, but I don't want to see 500 X-Men books. I want to see the core X-Men. At least they've got those 2. And now they need to fix that in Avengers. I guess I'm not. There's some of them I'll give like a gimme. I mean, like when they did Superior Spider-Man, Slott was going somewhere with that.
Yes.
And I think who's doing Thor right now?
Jason Aaron.
Yeah, he's going somewhere with this. And I'll even give Bendis a gimme in Iron Man. I know Iron Man got a lot of complaints. And I got to admit, I'm reading the infamous Iron Man, but I'm not reading the other one. And I'm curious to see where he's going. But it was like as soon as Bendis was off Guardians of the Galaxy, boom, everybody had a solo book. Ugh. And I think the big one that Bendis talked about was, and we referred to it a while back, the $10 Spider-Man book.
Yes. I don't know if that was on the episode that got eaten by the machine or not.
I think it was. We're basically what had happened, just as behind the scenes stuff, is Cory and I got together and we were working away and we had a podcast cooking away, despite. Well, we'll get to that in freaking. And when we discovered it didn't record, or the NSA seized it, I think,
or Pamela just kind of abended and nothing that was recorded was saved.
It was like, oh.
God damn it.
Hence the dreaded fill-in episode.
Oh, the fill-in episode was okay.
It was good. But we were, in really, it was a good episode. Hey, I wonder if Reginald had something to do with it. Never did figure out with that tour point. Get Wolfie on it. He's a sneaky little shit, just like Niedermeister. And anyways, we were all excited for the 300th episode, which was a blast. So, anyways,
you liked it.
The nice thing about it was, well, it was good food, good company. I mean, a good thing that Steph didn't, nail Wolfie to the wall.
It's more like Dave would have nailed Wolfie.
Yeah, David might have done it. No, it was pretty cool. So, but it was fun, and I honestly thought we were going to start over with a number 1 with a couple different variants. Okay, like this is the all Joe variant, and this is the all Cory variant, and
this is the ultra rare Butch variant.
Yeah, and over here we have the Reginald show. So I think we put money on the table. We could have had variant podcasts. This one ends with Joe's music. This one just ends. This one is, I don't know. And we could have started with a number 1, and but no, here we are at 301. Just like Marvel.
Yeah, we're better than Marvel. Although I am putting out a shit ton of different podcasts, aren't I? I really can't complain about Marvel flooding the market when I'm flooding the market.
Yeah, the difference is, though, we're free. We're not charging $4 a book.
Okay.
Or if they decide there's going to be 3 other tie-in comics that same week, that'll be $17. Nope, we are free, and we will remain free as long as Cory decides it, because really it's up to him.
And,
so download those, put them on a podcast, save them.
Save them forever.
Forever.
Now, we had a book that we were supposed to review a while back.
A ways back. And fortunately, the book just came out. Or where are we?
I have no idea.
It's coming out, I believe, next week as this podcast drops.
Oh, okay.
So,
and it's James Bond.
No, that's Peter Gunn. Yes, James Bond, Hammerhead by Andy Diggle from Dynamite Entertainment. The synopsis goes, Bond is assigned to hunt down and eliminate Kraken. Release the Kraken! No, not that one. A radical anti-capitalist who has targeted Britain's newly upgraded nuclear arsenal. But it has nothing to do with Trump, so don't worry about that. You can read it safely. But all is not as it seems, which, makes Bond Bond. Hidden forces are plotting to rebuild the faded glory of the once mighty British Empire and retake by force. You hear that, U.S.? What was consigned to history? 007 is a cog in their deadly machine, but is he an agent of change or an agent of the status quo? Loyalties will be broken. Alliances challenged. Well, it sounds like episode 300 of our podcast.
Hey.
But in an ever-changing world, there's one man you can rely on. Bond. James Bond. We got, what do you call it? PFP? PDF?
PDF.
Yep.
A PDF
and
sneak preview.
This is coming out as a hardcover for $24.99, and I gotta say, I enjoyed it fairly well. It was one of those books where the art is very good. You can tell who's who just by looking at it. You're not constantly guessing and going backwards. It is more violent than most James Bonds. I mean, it's one of those things where I wonder if they were like thinking movie script with this, because there's a couple times where the action just went insane and you're thinking, okay, this would be better in a movie. There were a couple places where I had to stop and scratch my head like, hey, wait a minute, why is this happening? And then sure enough, next couple issues, it's explained. So as far as I could tell, no plot holes that, drive me crazy. It was paced as a comic book because I believe it came out, was it 6 issues?
Yes.
And so it reads like that, where you get to the end and it's like, oh my God, will James Bond die? Well, let's get to issue 3 and find out. Well, probably not. So, all that worrying for nothing. I would say if you're a James Bond fan, it's worth picking up. If you're if you know a James Bond fan, this could be a good gift. If you're got middle class poverty, maybe wait for the paperback to come out. But all in all, this was not a bad James Bond flick. Cory?
It read more like one of the Bond novels than a Bond movie, which I liked. The plot was interesting enough and carried us through, but one of the things that struck me was, much like the Bond books, it wasn't very visual. It read more like a novel than a comic, and as I'm reading it, all I could think is the only reason this is a comic and not a book is because this company got the license to do James Bond. They didn't take advantage of the fact that it was a comic book to really kind of ignore a budget. And the art did nothing for me. There were panels where it was very clear that the artist just took his drawing from a previous panel and blew it up a little bit. And the characters were kind of nondescript. There was nothing really interesting about the people he drew. It was like, oh, there's generic pretty girl. These are generic bad guys. Here's generic this. The art didn't have a lot of personality, which bothered me in a lot of ways. I really wanted there to be kind of some individuality to the art, and instead it really, in some issues, it looked like a rush job. It really looked like he was using his Photoshop to just grab previous drawings and manipulate them a little bit, to the point where there was this one pose of the female character, kind of a three-quarter head, that by the third issue, I was sick of it. I didn't want to see that drawing ever again. I think I went through and counted, and in the first 3 issues, he used that drawing over 20 times. Either that or he was using the exact same reference material and made no differences. On the buy, borrow, ignore, this is a borrow. I would buy it if it were a cheap trade paperback. $25 for a hardcover of it, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. This isn't something you're going to go back and read again and again and again. Joe, your review?
I think similar. I mean, for me, just to read it once is fine. I'm not a huge James Bond fan. And if you have a friend or a close one that likes James Bond, this could be a good Christmas gift, or maybe just borrow it library-wise. I don't know. So definitely worth reading. It's not something I would probably reread or want in my collection. Unlike some of the things we're going to talk about.
So what books have you been reading that you've really liked?
Well, a couple weeks ago, we were going to all get together. One of our friends has this rumbling about doing a business. And so we're all going to meet up Mall of America. And then, of course, I got up early. With the chiropractor, and then I was out moving about, and as the day went on, everybody kind of plopped out. I don't want to go. It's too late. I got this. Whatever. So I kept geeking, solo geeking. It was kind of sad, kind of lonely. Chris and the girls were out of town, but I persevered by myself and stopped by our good buddy down at in Egan, Cedar Cliff Collectibles. And by the way, Cory, he thanks you for giving him a heads up about all those Marvel Omnibuy.
He never did get back to me about what ones he'd have available, though, so I bought them elsewhere. I don't have the heart to tell him that, hey, I would have bought all those from you if you would have just emailed me back, buddy.
Well, he did have quite a stack of them. And he was telling me it was quite a battle to get the thing. It was almost like it was a secret list, or they were saving it for certain stores, which is, he's neither here nor there. But, it's like he called his rep, didn't know anything about it. He said, well, find out. He talked to his manager, and then finally, like three or four people up, he found the guy with the secret list, and he ordered a bunch. And, most of them are ones I don't care to have, but I did pick up Uncanny Avengers, which is really cool because it was like $100 and he had it for $30. And it's a series that I've been meaning to read, and it was actually pretty good. I mean, the Omnibus collected Uncanny Avengers 1 through 75, the AU,
which was Age of Ultron, and the annual. And the funny thing was is that I'm reading through this. I got to admit, when I tried reading this as series, it kind of left me. Because what happens is they will be dealing with, plot line A, B, C, and then they go off into a tangent. Well, this tangent will be very relevant as they keep the story moving forward. And it's a very good story technique, especially if you're going to read something in a graphic novel form. It sucks as a monthly because you're going to have a tough time picking up people as you continue to steamroll forward. It's a unique style. Some guys pull it off. Well, even Hickman gets that way. There's times where you might pick up a book that he's written, and he's going somewhere with it, but it's real confusing as to where. I mean, there were times in his FF run, and even sometimes on the Avenger run leading into Secret Wars, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. But in Uncanny Adventures, as I was reading it, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. And, of course, it leads into something I did not enjoy at all. Oh.
And we can go into it, or we can see what Cory wants to talk about.
Well, the first comic that I read is one that I was looking forward to, and it failed on such a level that I almost now might just I'm I've already ordered a couple other issues, but the all-time comics line from Fantagraphics. They are being edited by Al Milgrom, who was one of my favorite editors at Marvel, because of Marvel Fanfare, and a number of other books. And they're using older creators and some indie guys. And I picked up the first issue of Bullwhip, and it was awful. It was just god-awful. I couldn't tell if it was a parody, if it was trying to be an underground, if it was just bad. The plot was simplistic. The art did not fit the story at all. And it actually read like some 14-year-old kid's superhero book, where, hey, it's superheroes, except they swear a lot. And I expected a lot more from this book, because it's Fantagraphics. They were talking about how we're bringing the fun back to superheroes, and instead it's just, it read like a fanzine. It really read like a fanzine. And their other books are Crime Destroyer, Blind Justice, and Atlas. I've already signed up to get Crime Destroyer and Blind Justice, and if they aren't any better, I'm just going to ignore the whole line. I really expected a lot better out of this, especially when they said, hey, we've got some Herb Trimpe art that hasn't been seen. We're going to be using older creators. If this is the kind of stuff they're putting out, they don't know their market, because the people who are going to buy stuff by older creators are going to feel the way I did, that it's just amateurish and poorly done. Joe, what did Uncanny Avengers lead into?
Avengers, X-Men, Axis. This was a event book, and it was 9 issues, and part of the storyline, and it's still going on now, in Uncanny Adventures, the Red Skull crafted part of Professor Xavier's brain onto his head, and through the manipulations or whatever, when they finally went to defeat him, they ended up releasing Red Onslaught. I don't know what else to call the guy. And they discover somehow he ends up, when the heroes go to stop him, they end up flip-flopping personalities. So some of the heroes end up being villains and being narcissistic, and some of the villains end up being heroes. And what I didn't like about this is just all the vile hatred going on. I mean, it was so anti-mutant, anti-human. It was ramped up to just a nasty level. And you're kind of like, yeah, well, Red Skull's behind it. They're trying to be Nazi-esque in the thing that, yes, mutants are scum, and then mutants are thinking, yeah, humans need to die so we can take over the earth, and blah, blah, blah. But it was just not a joy to read. I believe this came out weekly. So maybe, and I read it in one sitting, because, I finished reading Uncanny Avengers, and I was like, oh, man, I can't wait. I got this crossover. It's not one that I blew out on the eBays. And, it was just painful, and by the time it was finished, it led into other series, and of course, I don't know what happened. Maybe you can tell me, Cory. I don't know if you want to throw up a spoiler warning, but what happened? Tony Stark got away unchanged. Doom took off with the Red Skull. What happened? Where did these storylines go?
They did a story where Tony Stark was evil, and sort of wrapped it all up where Secret Wars was almost a reset button for it. And I remember reading the stuff coming out of Axis thinking, oh, I like the idea of Tony Stark actually keeping his evil personality, but they really didn't have a lot of time to do that before Secret Wars hit. And then when they came back, it was just completely ignored. Just utterly ignored.
So we know what happened with Doom,
And we also know kind of what happened with the Red Skull, because that story leads to the Pleasantville story.
Oh.
Which I don't know if you've read yet or not, but Red Skull actually gets his hand on a new cosmic cube, which is what has made everybody so angry.
How did he get away from Doom? Or was that just one of the reset buttons in Secret Wars?
One of the reset buttons in Secret Wars.
Because the last thing we see is Doom sitting on his throne. Red Skull's looking very pathetic with something on his head, obviously keeping Xavier's brain power from doing whatever. So okay, so I didn't miss
all
anything.
Of reality was destroyed.
Okay, so I didn't miss anything.
Not really.
Yeah, Superboy punched the wall.
No, all of reality was destroyed.
Yep, punch the wall. That was a hell of a punch.
That's the new punch the wall.
Yep.
And then everything was destroyed and put back together.
Okay. So there was never a teenage Stark.
Oh, God, I hope not.
Cleanse the palate.
Every so often I pick up that Avengers The Crossing omnibus and we'll read an issue. And by the end of each issue I'm going, what the fuck were they thinking?
Yeah, because we all know that Iron Man was the original agent of Kang.
Yes.
He was the one that was evil from the beginning. And if I wasn't dead, said Tony Stark, I would be really mad at Cap for stealing my thunder. That's twice. He did it in Civil War, and now he's doing it now.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, pretty much. Who does he think he is, dying and coming back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cory, cleanse the palate. Tell me something you read that's good.
Something I read that I really liked was, come on, lousy, no good, stupid computer.
Ah!
The computer's locking up.
Sorry, I was screaming because a black rabbit just ran past me. Bun, you got damn little respect for Project Superpowers. I put it on the floor and he ran over, took a bite out of one and ran away. Not that I blame you, but that's not what I'm going to review.
Hey.
I totally forgot he was running around the house.
Nobody told you. Nobody told you.
You told me nothing. Oh, man.
Sorry, my computer's really slowed down when I'm looking at my notes here.
Yeah, I
can edit it out.
As you know, Cory is using the Crayatron 2000.
Well, I'm recording everything and then making sure it's still recording.
Yeah, exactly.
Silver Surfer number 10. I have talked a lot about Silver Surfer in the past. It's by Dan Slott, who does Amazing Spider-Man, and Mike Allred, who I interviewed on this here podcast, and I'm quite proud of that interview. Silver Surfer number 10 is the end of a story and the beginning of a story. If you've been reading the Ultimates, you know that Galactus is no longer devouring planets. He is now the life bringer.
His tummy is full.
He's now the life bringer, and he summons the Silver Surfer to be his herald, which is an interesting sequence. And we find out that Galactus is keeping these two things in our universe apart, that if they meet, begins the process of entropy on a much faster level.
They just fixed the damn universe.
Well, so the Silver Surfer gets teleported to one end of the universe, and Dawn gets teleported to the other end of the universe to keep these two things apart. But the story isn't about that. It's about their feelings for each other and realizing that they are now a complete universe apart from each other. Allred's art is phenomenal. Dan Slott is doing... If you read the book, you will see how much of a Doctor Who fan he is. Because it has a lot of thematic parallels to the kind of the new version of Doctor Who. You know, the rebooted version of the past 10 or so years. And if you're not reading the Silver Surfer because you think you're mad at Marvel or it ties in with too much stuff, you can read The Silver Surfer all by itself. You'll get wonderful Mike Allred art, and it's just a very sweet, heartwarming, cosmic superhero story. And could not recommend it enough. It's one of my favorites.
Speaking of Doctor Who, I finally finished putting together a run of Doctor Who Prisoners of Time. I say finally because when it originally came out, I was buying it through the source, and I was picking up the photo covers. And the photo covers were the ones that went ballistic in price. Unfortunately, by the time issue 4 came around, they decided to stop giving me the photo covers. And, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I could get the Tom Baker one on eBay for $50. Don't even look. They're not even on eBay now. That's how rare they are. So I decided, you know what, I'll just pick up the interlocking covers. And it took me a while to finally figure out which ones I was missing, but I did get it together, and I read it. It was kind of a 50-year tribute, because what happens is they go through all the Doctor Who characters, or I should say the Doctor Who versions that we're aware of, and what happens is there's a villain in the background, and we're not quite sure who it is, although the reveal is really good, and I'm not going to give it to you.
Fine.
There's
a lot I'm not giving you either.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get to freaking. And somebody is stealing the companions. And the problem is they've decided somewhere in the continuity that the Time Lords don't really remember everything, but they do. It's kind of like you trying to remember something that is just on the tip of your brain, and in your course of day-to-day adventuring, you just don't remember it. And so, as the later versions watch their companions disappear, they start remembering it happened previously, and that's when the fun really gets going. And what's wonderful about it is not only that it's a good romp through Doctor Who, they also, I don't know, Cory, did you ever read any of the comic strips that came out, the Doctor Who Weekly?
No, I did not.
There is a character, and if I was in Doctor Who, I'd bring him back, and I can't find the name of it, but he is a shapeshifter, and for the longest time, he just decides to be a penguin. And so, if you were to pick up a random episode, here is Doctor traveling with a talking penguin. Well, they bring this back. In the back, there's a series of episodes called Reflections of Time, and what happens is the writer talks about the different comic book versions of Doctor Who from the beginning all the way through the Marvel years up until current runs. He talks about whether they work or not, and the big thing, of course, is in between the end of the Eighth Doctor, Sylvester McCoy's Doctor and Christopher Eccleston, they kept running episodes of the Eighth Doctor. And it's just kind of an interesting history of British publishing and comics, the type of things that, you and I, Cory, talk about. So it's kind of a twosome. The series itself's a lot of fun, especially if you're a Doctor Who fan, and then you get this little bit of history on the background. It is available as a deluxe hardcover for $50. There's 3 books that you can pick up, paperbacks, or just go online, because the various, again, they came out through IDW, who's big on variant covers. And although most of the photo covers are hard to find, you can find the regular A and B covers for a couple bucks. And you should be able to assemble a set real easy. But if you're a Doctor Who fan, definitely check this out. It's I know a lot of publishers always like to go to that well. Even when Titan got a hold of it, they did a 5-Doctor crossover. But this one's fun because they all get together, and it would have been if you could go back and make it a real episode, I think it would have been a lot of fun. But 'tis not to be. Cory?
Spider-Man number 25. Ending the story with the clone conspiracy, starting the story where he's fighting Doctor. He's fighting the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus.
He might be a doctor. We just don't know.
And Dr. Octopus goes through a major change. This was a 40-page main story, but it was a $10 comic with, gosh, I don't even know how many pages it says here. But
let's see if I have it nearby, because it's a big boy.
Yeah, there was the main story. There were a number of backup stories, and including one by, let's see, Ray Anthony Height, who is a graduate of the Minnesota College of Art and Design and was taught how to draw comics by friend of the show and personal friend Terry Beatty. So, was it worth $10? No.
Unfortunately, we got it, at discount through, discount comic service. But
we got it at discount, but still, yes, it's extra big and everything, but a lot of the backup stories were just, that's okay.
Yeah, they were just backup stories. I mean, they didn't have anything to do with the main thing. They could have done something like what you talked about. You could have gone and visited some of the characters we haven't seen in a while. Give us a little blue. What is Flash thinking? I mean, he's been out in outer space. He's played the hero. He had the Venom on. Now he doesn't have it. He's back to, I don't know if did he lose one or two legs?
Both legs. He lost both legs.
What's he feeling? Did they give us a sneak peek into Scarlet Spider?
They did not, although Scarlet Spider came out this week. So
yeah, they could have done that.
I'm hearing really good things about it, which surprises me.
I'm not. Peter David writes fairly well. I mean, Peter David's one of the writers that actually, if I see his name, I'm prone to pick it up. For example, way back when I picked this book up at a bookstore that unfortunately no longer exists anymore. It's an actual paperback called Wolverine Election Day that's written by Peter David. And it's kind of funny because this came out in 2008, and it almost as if like Peter went through time and discovered, well, let's just say there's less than 3 weeks to go in the run-up to the nation's next general presidential election, a heated political contest pitting the incumbent president against a popular challenger. But all bets are off when a heinous act of domestic terrorism results in a young boy being held hostage before the eyes of America. And when the ultimate demands to result in nothing short of changing the face of American history. And, of course, there's a nationwide investigation and the boy's possible whereabouts. The military is not mobilized. NSA is on the job. And Wolverine gets involved, too. So, and it's kind of interesting because one of the demands that the terrorists do is they say, this kid we kidnapped, we're going to kill unless the American people don't vote for the incumbent president. And to make matters even, the book's from 2008. You've either read it or you haven't. But this is kind of funny because it's almost like what happened in our elections. Like all of a sudden a third party comes in and kind of influences the election, and we got to see where it's going to go and who's innocent, who's guilty, and, will Wolverine save the kid? I found it just a fun read. I actually read it in a single day. And I haven't done that in a paperback for a while, where I just sit down and it's like, damn, this is good. I got to keep reading and see what happens. And, there's a few things, like, oh, we lost Wolverine. He had to have died. Well, yeah, he's not going to die. The question is how is he going to pop up? And this is actually a pretty good
Wolverine's not going to die?
Well, he's dead now. But back then he was alive and
I was going to say.
So this was actually a whole run of books that Pocket was doing at the time. And I will have to look for the other ones. I think you can probably find them cheap on the eBays. I know I picked this up at a used bookstore when we visited. Unfortunately, the bookstore doesn't last or didn't last. So, but again, Wolverine Election Day by Peter David. If you see it, pick it up. It was fun to read.
In the great omnibus dump, one of the ones that Marvel dumped was Marvel Firsts the 1990s. Now, Marvel's been putting out trade paperbacks of Marvel first. They started with the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and then the 90s, and they put out 3 trade paperbacks of the 90s. And I haven't bought the trade paperbacks because, the 60s, do I really need another reprint of Amazing Fantasy 15?
Sure you do.
Do I really need another reprint of the first appearance of the Mighty Thor?
Yes.
No, I don't.
Come on.
I have enough of
Come
them.
on. You won't even pick up the Marvel firsts?
But for $22 for a omnibus, it costs $125 and is over 1,000 pages. This is fun, and the cover is very, very 90s. It's got Liefeld drawings of Deadpool and Cable. It's got a weird, messed up drawing of Venom. Darkhawk is in the middle.
Hi, Rob.
Ooh, Darkhawk. One of the things I find very interesting when you go through, you can really see the passage of time in these comics, because in the beginning, you've got the first issue of Ghost Rider, which there are some mysteries, but it's a double-sized issue that sets everything up and has a complete story. And by the time you get to, let's see, what is this one here? What is this ugly piece of crap? Let's see, there's Death's Head 2. It's not a good-looking book.
No.
Oh, some of these just look so awful. They're brain-bustingly terrible looking. Terror Inc.
Oh, that's the guy who would find pieces of body parts and just put them on his himself. Yeah.
Yep, but there's, they've got most of the beginning of Marvel's, what was that, the Darkhold era.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's, this is all different parts of a story here. And, because they're only doing first issues, you get parts 2, 4, and 5. Thanks!
Yeah,
Thanks.
That's not good thinking there. But it was the first.
Here's the first issue of Force Works. Joe, do you remember what Force Works was?
I want to say it had something to do with War Machine and like an alternate Avengers or something.
It was the West Coast Avengers. It didn't have War Machine. It had Iron Man.
Ah.
But let's see, in the artist, it's Tom Tenney, who, boy, you don't see his work anymore, and as you flip through this issue, you'll see why. But do you remember the big event that happened in the book to make this #1 huge?
Did it have like a fold-out cover?
No, they killed Wonder Man.
Oh, he got better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's energy. You can't kill energy.
Yeah,
and what's worse is he's fictional. The next guy who writes, hey, whatever happened to Iron Man? I think I'll bring him back.
And, here's the first Bishop.
Wouldn't that have been Peter?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, the first Bishop solo issue. There's the Elektra series by D.G. Chichester and Scott McDaniel. You remember that, right? Yeah, see? And by the time you're getting near the end, it's okay, here's the first issue of Quicksilver. I bet you didn't even remember Quicksilver had his own series.
I didn't even know he was sick.
Or, the first appearance of Slingers. Not a single one of those characters made it.
The world needs quarter books, but my God.
But, it's like digging in the quarter boxes. It really shows why Marvel, when you look through, it's like, wow, none of these series are still going. Well, there's a reason for that. I'm trying to look here and see if any of these series are still going. Let's see, there's the first New Warriors. Sleepwalker. Ooh.
At last I remember he appeared.
Spider-Man 2099's kind of still going, except, it went away for a long time. Deadpool, the miniseries. Wow. X-Man.
Somewhere in my crap, I have that. It's one of those books that I've been meaning to read, although I'll probably just give up and throw it in a dollar bin.
Another one of the attempts to do a Blade series. They actually probably could have reprinted like 3 different first issues of Blade in this if they wanted to be jerks. First issue of Cable's in here. But it really shows why Marvel in the 90s just couldn't seem to get a series going, because none of these first issues feel classic. None of them feel important. It was more, yeah, here's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to throw at you and some really imagey art. But still, for $22, it was fun. Joe, the next book you got?
It was a real book, and I'd read it before.
You actually read real books?
I know, and I had read it before. And the weird thing was, as I was reading through it, I forgot a lot about it. I mean, I knew he was going to get A to B, and how the book ended. But in between, I forgot. And what's amazing is that I have a choice now. I could watch the Stars TV series, or I could go to the Dark Horse series currently being done, or I could just pick up the trade paperback that's floating around. I reread American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Came out originally in 2001, and if you ever read Neil, it's just, again, another guy who could read. He could write the freaking phone book, and it would be fantastic. And
he could write about plumbing.
He could. But
what was your wife saying about plumbing?
We'll get to it in freaking. And what ended up, I don't know, do you have Stars, Cory? Are you watching this?
I am not watching it. I don't know if the first episode has shown yet or not.
I think it has, and I know at least 2 of the issues from Dark Horse are out. And I know I'm going to wait and pick it up in the inevitable trade, because if it's anything like Sandman, it's going to be one of those that I will pull off the shelf and reread. And American Gods was just fantastic. You should be able to go find a cheap copy somewhere. It's been in hardcover. If you can, look for the 10th anniversary edition, because it's the author's preferred text that has an additional 12,000 words in it. And the plot pretty much is what you'd expect. I mean, it's about American gods. There's a war coming. It's a war between the gods of mythology that we know. They were brought over here when people came over from the old world, versus the new gods that have popped up. And Shadow, who is a convict, is released from prison early when his wife and best friend Robbie Burton die in a car accident. And he's kind of alone in the world. He takes a job as a bodyguard for a con man called Mr. Wednesday. And from that, it's just, you go travel on. It's just a fantastic book. And, I read it because as my job's changing, I go from different areas in the airport now. And I just needed something I could carry with. And I thought, well, I'll carry American Gods. And I started reading it. And just like the Wolverine one, I read it in like a day and a half. Or I should reread it, because it was just fascinating. And even as I was going through it, I was like, okay, I know I've read this before, but damn, I don't remember a lot of it. Because like I said, I probably read it when it first came out in a hardcover, 2001, and I haven't touched it since. So it's just one of those I'm going to have to revisit every so often. Or go watch the Stars series. Or pick up the Dark Horse series. Or do all 3.
The last book that I'm going to be talking about that I read was X-Men Blue. Joe and I have talked about X-Men Prime and then X-Men Gold.
Gold!
But X-Men Blue is the original 5 who have been pulled forward to the present, and when they were finally able to travel back in time, found out that when they went back there, there was already a team back there. So they're kind of lost and out of time. I don't know if they will do anything more with that. It's probably an after effect of Secret Wars. because they were in the present when the universe was recreated. And before Secret Wars, time was broken. They haven't mentioned that time is broken, so I imagine Secret Wars probably fixed time. And what I'm hoping is that they go back to the old rule of you cannot travel back to your own past. When you travel to the past, you go to an alternate universe. And Lord knows Marvel's putting a lot of books in alternate universes. But I like the original 5 in the modern era. I think Bendis had a great idea to pull them forward in that they act like teenagers. And because the original 5 X-Men are all messed up now, kind of except for Iceman. It's good to see
Iron Ice.
Iron Iceman. And it's a very standard superhero book. There's not a lot of mutant angst until you get to the end where they pull out the big reveal, which is not a big reveal because they put it everywhere. But if you want, spoiler warning, the team is being led by Magneto.
Dun, dun, dun!
I liked it, but then I've always liked the original 5. Since Bendis pulled him forward, I'm going to continue reading this one. So far, the 2 core X-Men books are books that I enjoy. And it's been a long time since I've been able to say that. I just hope they don't start overcomplicating them, which is always the problem with the X-Men. When Grant Morrison wrote the X-Men, he smoothed it out. You could read it and enjoy it, and you didn't need to have a PhD in X-Men history. And then when he left, it didn't take him long before it's, oh my God, they've rewritten the origin of Zorn 3 times.
Why, I just read that in New Avengers, what happened to the energy of Zorn? We will deal with it. And kill Alpha Flight.
There was also a scene in that. Remember when they landed in Detroit? As, they're going to fight the Collective. And they land in Detroit, and they basically say, we're coming back. And they never came back. And that has bugged me ever since, that it's okay, you're very clearly setting up a plot. And then it just is ignored. That always annoys me in comics. Always. Joe?
I'm going to do a quick threesome because, as we know...
Woo! You're doing a threesome, and Dan's not on the show.
And my wife ran in, so, technically it is. As you know, as I'm wading through my vast accumulation of crap for the inevitable purge, I keep running across things that I've never read. And, some of them, like, I don't recall if I talked about... Daredevil Batman, the Marvel crossover that probably should never have been done.
Now, which one is this?
That was the one Marvel put out.
Okay, who's the creative team?
Hang on, as I run to Atomic Avenue.
We're gonna run down to
Atomic Avenue. And
then we'll take it higher.
Because what it is when Marvel does it, it's Daredevil Batman, and when DC does it was Batman Daredevil. This one was 97. It was, I believe, the first part of a DC crossover, and this one was done by Daniel Chichester and Scott McDaniel.
Yeah, that was not the good one.
No, and it shows, and it was annoying because, Batman was an asshole for just being an asshole. And you compare that to when he did it, the Spider-Man Batman, where he actually knew who Spider-Man was, made an acknowledgement. You did a good job with the Maximum Carnage. This one, I find it, first of all, hard to believe that Batman doesn't know who Daredevil is. And second of all, that he just treats him like, an idiot, And of course, Daredevil's just chides on him, too. So I kind of ignore things like that. Every so often I run across something that's disappointing, and not for reasons you would think. Arcana came out in 2005 with a one-shot called Crisscross. And it was published after the writer Doug Myers passed away, kind of as a tribute to him.
Now, I believe that Crisscross is going to make you jump. Jump.
Please clap.
Well, no, because being that he's dead, there is no chance of this cliffhanger ever being resolved. So it's kind of it's sad because the book is good. The art is laid out really well, and the storyline, after reading it, you're kind of like, oh, what's next? But he passed away, and they do a tribute from Comic Book Resources, a couple pictures, and again, it was just kind of it's disappointing because we will never see another one shot. It's kind of, but if you see it, give it a shot. Some are kind of misses. I mean, you take Brandon Choi, Arthur Adams. I mean,
Art Adams art.
And crossover Gen 13 and Generation X. Yeah, no, didn't quite work it. This again was during the big phase of Marvel crossing over, and while it was cool that these were the premier teen superheroes, you might have to go to Wikipedia just to remember who these people were. There's a couple a lot of variant covers, so you have a good choice on eBay what to pick up. Arthur Adams' art was okay, I guess. It might have been rushed. It might have been too heavily inked. I don't know. It just didn't strike me as Art Adams. A couple times I had to go back and look at the cover. Was it? And this story was okay, but it has a problem that a lot of these books had at that time, is that there's no real resolution. Nothing happened in this crossover that mattered. Unlike when McFarlane did his version of Spawn Batman, and of course he brought in Frank Miller to do the art, which alone was great. At the end of the story, Batman sunk a batarang into Spawn's head. Well, in the next issue of Spawn, he's using a shoelace to sew his head back together, and for the longest time you see Spawn with crisscross shoelace on his head. That was the type of thing where, while McFarlane couldn't refer to Batman anymore, it did matter what happened in the storylines as it went forward. So again, this one, I don't know, pick it up for $1 or something. The one that surprised me that I really, really enjoyed, it was Superman 712. Buzak, Leonardi, and Sabal. This is pre-New 52, after, it was an Infinity Crisis? It had to have been, because Superboy killed Superboy. And this is Krypto's reaction to it, done from his standpoint. I have a soft spot for Krypto, especially the classic stories in the old DC universe. I mean, I remember picking up a Superman Family because it had a Krypto story in it rather than the Kiss Super Special, because my mom and dad tell me I could have one, not both. And this one's kind of neat. It's kind of sad. It tugs on the old heartstring. And it's one of the few books that I imagine I'll be podcasting in the future about. These are books, despite me purging my collection, I kept this copy because I really enjoy reading it. And there aren't too many of those that I'll talk about because, we want this podcast to go to 600. Maybe.
Or more.
Or more, yeah. What's the world record for longest podcast?
Well, I don't know. I know Comic Geeks beats over 1,400.
We're hot on your tail, boys.
Damn right. Well, we overtook WrestleCrap Radio last year.
Well, yeah, but they were crap.
WrestleCrap. How dare you, sir? They are my favorite. They are my favorite podcast. I'm not on.
Wait a minute. Didn't you interview them?
Yeah, they were on the show.
I wouldn't know. I kept getting shoved out.
That was kind of the train wreck show.
I was disappointed because they didn't recognize any of the Bobby Heenan quotes I said. But you can go back and look at that one for free if you want.
All the old ones are free. You know what else you can go back and look at?
What's that?
These guys, our sponsors. That's right. Here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right. You're charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You could get them weekly. You could get them bi-weekly. You could get them monthly. You could just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. Subject advertising. Thanks. So we're going to ask the Strode.
And, of course, we're going to ask you quite a bit, because I still got questions left over from the 300th episode.
Oh, man.
Questions we didn't get to.
Oh.
Plus, we got some questions that may actually end up being entire podcasts.
But we're not going to ask them all today.
And don't ask for. Well, we'll give you credit, but there's no money involved, so don't ask.
Well, let's remember.
We give everything away for free.
We have to remember that this is just an exhibition. It's not a competition, so please, no wagering.
And if we are indeed a national treasure, you should be paying us.
Yes, we are a national treasure.
We are. And they'll probably sell us off because they want to, dig an oil well here or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cory, tell me about. Sell us to pay for the wall.
Tell me about Avengers 1959.
Avengers 1959 was actually by Bendis and Howard Chaykin. And Bendis literally wrote it so that Howard Chaykin could draw cool 50s stuff. And it's kind of set before the Avengers all got together. And, it's got Chaykin doing his American flag style art, too. Oh, it's so pretty. It is so pretty.
Yep. Tell me about Bring the Thunder.
Wasn't that one of those kid dance movies that came out in the 2000s?
No, but in 2010, it was a Dynamic Forces miniseries by Jai Nitz and Wilson Torsoda. And what's interesting is that they had Alex Ross doing variant sketch covers.
Oh. Okay.
Essentially, Wayne Russell is an elite parachute jumper in the Air Force. Serving in Afghanistan, he leads the most rigorous trained troops on the most dangerous mission into enemy territory. During one of the deadliest missions, his team is ambushed. Mortally wounded, Wayne finds and fires an experimental weapon, but the weapon malfunctions, and the results will change Wayne and warfare forever. And there's 4 issues. There's a mini-series, and that's all, folks. The reason I mention it because I had one of that there Alex Ross sketch covers, and that seems to be the most collectible aspect of the series.
Yeah, because I've never heard of those creators.
Yeah. We talked about Daredevil Batman, and actually the one copy I had I did sell on the eBay, so it's out of my life. Cory, did you ever watch Buffy?
Every episode.
Now, did you read any of the Dark Horse or the IDW series that spun off it?
Yes, I am a season and a half behind on the Dark Horse series, though. I read season 8 and loved it. I've read most of season 9, and it was okay. And I haven't read season 10.
I had a Spike miniseries that had Willow and Spike on the cover. And again, I don't know where it fits in the whole thing, or if the Josh verse is like the original Star Wars universe, where every series tied in, and here's where it tied in. But those retailer incentive covers, I got quite a few of them, and if you don't get them off the eBays, they're going to the con. So one way or another, we're going to move them.
I like Willow.
Cory, was World's Finest 226 a 100-pager or not?
I believe it was.
Very good. Because it came out in 1974, and I have a bunch of good reading copies.
I love those 100-pagers.
Oh, and this is how I got involved in the Golden Age and Silver Age, by finding books like this. And back when I was buying them in the early 80s, they were cheap. Now in mint shape, they're ungodly expensive, but you can still find beat-up ones. And I found a bunch, and I've read through them, and now I put them back on eBay just to sell them. So check it out, Crazy, Krayz, and they're all yours. With a nominal PayPal payment, of course.
After Joe has talked about the eBays, we then get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I play with the Coca-Cola bear I got out of a vending machine instead of a Diet Coke. No,
Did you know the Coca-Cola bear once tried to bite me?
Well, why not?
I got a picture of it, too. I was in Vegas. I went and had a picture. I thought we were tight, and next thing I know, he bit my head.
Well, you deserved it.
I am tasty.
No, it's freaking and geeking. Since you've been talking about it all show, Joe, what are you freaking on?
All right, Cory, let's, I need you to help here with some math. What is 50 plus 60?
110.
Okay, times that by 3.
Okay. This in the denominator.
Use your toes if you need to.
Carry the 7.
Yep. Don't forget the imaginary number.
Take it times negative A. And 330.
Yes, I have a 330% chance of stroking out.
What?
Well, over the weekend, apparently they came out with the study that it was a study that confirms that sugary soda has a 3 times chance of giving somebody either dementia or stroking out. And being that I am diabetic with a 50% chance of stroking out, and I have rheumatoid arthritis, which is a 60% chance of stroking out. It gives me a 110% chance of stroking off. Being that I drink diet soda at least once a day, and they said that diet soda is no better than sugar soda, I've got a 330% chance of stroking out.
And most of the time you're just stroking out while watching porn on the eBays.
Of course. I mean, I'm thinking you've seen that thing on Facebook. These are the top 10 concerts I went to, and one of them's a lie. I'm thinking about these are the top 10 things I've jacked off to, and one of them is true. So, anyways, however, I mentioned to Cory last week we recorded, and the thing died, and then we thought about doing it again, but I had to bow it because I had the world's worst headache. And even at the 300th episode, I was feeling a little under the weather. And I done figured out why.
And why is that?
I got shingles.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, apparently I have had it for the last 10 days. I'm old. And what it is it's shingles. You see the ad on the news, oh my God, this will cause you to bend in half. Well, it's more insidious than that. You get it if you've had the chickenpox virus, because apparently the virus just hangs in your nerve endings and never goes away. And 1 in 5 people, it'll pop up. Well, it popped up. And it doesn't necessarily become a debilitating rash. In my case, I had this red spot on my head that was kind of bumpy. And of course, I got a little bit of acne here and there, so I didn't think much about it. sometimes I get that reaction when I shave too close, but I hadn't shaved in a week. And then, of course, it crept to the top of my head and went over to the side. And again, I didn't think much about it because when you have acne, this ingrown hairs, I'm a hairy guy. It happens occasionally. This is just a fact of fucking life. Don't look at me like that. Don't judge me. But I had a horrendous headache, and my neck was just killing me, and my joints were achy. Why does that come up? Because that also happens with rheumatoid arthritis. Finally, my wife, looked at the rash, and she said, that kind of looks like shingles. And I'm like, well, it doesn't feel like shingles because it's not painful, and it's not itchy, the two things that drive people crazy about that. And I went in and finally just saw a doctor, and sure enough, yeah, they're thinking it's shingles, as opposed to what I thought it might be. And part of that is, you might run a fever. I might have had a fever, I don't know, but they said you could get a headache during it. And believe me, I had a frickin' headache. I mean, neck massages wouldn't get rid of it. Tylenol, ibuprofen didn't get rid of it. It just hung on no matter what. That was my first mistake. I should have realized when you have a headache like that, something's wrong. If you just have a headache and you take some painkillers, it usually will fade. If not, you're sick. And sometimes it's because of, like, I'm getting a cold or something, like Cory's got. But in this case, I had it. So everybody went to the 3000 show is infected. Everybody at MSP Airport's infected. Yada, yada, blah, blah, blah.
3000th show?
Yeah.
Are you cheating on me with another podcast?
It's a long podcast, let me tell you. But no, I asked the doctor about that, and she said the thing is that none of my bumps were open or weepy. If you've ever had chicken pox, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm on drugs for it. I mean, the thing is the size of a golf cart. They said, take a hot bath and take 2 of these. And I went in and I had to go see the eye doctor because some of the bumps were close to the eye and they want to make sure it doesn't get in your eyes, which, again, being a diabetic, you're worried about your retinas dying on you. So I'm always going in. I had to do the glaucoma thing, where they put that blue light so close to you that if you blink, you're going to poke yourself. Have you ever had that, Cory?
Yeah.
Ugh. It beats the puffing thing they used to do. And the doc asked if I had taken my medicine yet. And I said, I haven't finished the hot bath. Seriously, I did. I mean, anyways, that's why I was feeling so under the weather. So it's nice to know what it was as opposed to, God, I hope I never have that again. We had a mouse in the house. Don't know where it came from, but I got the sumbitch.
Bun didn't get it?
No, he just kind of, and that's the thing.
Terrible, terrible mouser.
He's a terrible rabbit, but he's mighty tasty. Oh, I'm sorry, I said too much.
No wonder he's hiding from you all the time.
And Cory confirmed that, unfortunately, Windows 10 does not work well with my $100 Yeti Blue microphone that I bought exclusively to work on this here podcast, because the other one, every time I move, creaks. And it's not creaking, that means I am holding absolutely still. We had it set up for the 300th extravaganza, and unfortunately it did not work. Fortunately, Cory brought his mic, and I believe, hopefully you guys got to listen to it. It was a lot of fun doing it. Cory, what are you freaking on?
I have a few things, because we really, it's been 2 weeks.
It has been. And we allowed everybody one freaking at the 300 show. Otherwise, Wolfie and Dan would have been just going on and on and on.
And the show had already gone for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Joe, I have shown you that I am missing 2 teeth, haven't I? Way back, yeah. Not anything, not recently. It hasn't been like a parlor trick of yours. Right. When I was 17, 2 of my front teeth were broken off at the gum line in an accident.
I was 17, I lost some very good teeth.
and they put implants in, and the implants were put in very poorly.
I wasn't staring at your chest, I promise.
Because by the time I was 30, I would go to the dentist, and they go, these things are going bad. And when they go south, they're going to go south in a big way. Well, a few years ago, they went south in a big way. And I was given a replacement. And earlier this week, between the two jobs and all the stuff I've been doing, and the fact that, the 300 was a lot of work for me. And I woke up, and I could not find my teeth. Couldn't find them. Which
is the oddest sentence I think we've ever uttered on this here podcast. And we've had a few doozies. I can't find my teeth.
So I
put your pants on high, sat on the front yard with a shotgun, and threatened the neighbors.
Actually, I went to work and said that I'm from Alabama. And
I'm from Alabama, and I go sign up old Chopper here. We're going to town.
And my supervisor said that on all of my calls, I sounded like Cindy Brady.
How you doing?
So I said that as soon as I could find me a kitty carry-all, I'll bring it in. But I went to the dentist so that they could put in all the stuff to give me a new one, which thankfully I have now. $600 for that money.
All Cory wants for Christmas is his two front teeth.
But I haven't had dental coverage since 2011. And unlike when you go into the car place and you haven't had your car looked at in a long time, they did not say, boy, we're glad to see you. They were like, well, we're going to need to do a little work before we can give you a new one. You were kind
of like Eugene Levy on Married with Children when he saw Al's teeth. Good Lord! Oh, what the hell? Oh, I've never seen anything so bad. Oh, hold on, Michael. Look at me. I'm shaking. Oh, God, I don't know if I can do this. No, I'm a professional. I can do it. I can handle it.
I will say this.
Give me a shot of bourbon first.
The dentist actually said, you're British, aren't you?
Now that we've insulted our British listeners, our Alabaman listeners, and our denture listeners.
But 2 hours later, they sent me on my way. 2 hours it took of scraping and buzzing and this and that, and I need to go back at least 3 more times this year to get everything fixed. But I have insurance and I can get it fixed. Yeah, Joe, do you remember about a month ago where I said, wow, I've discovered the show Scrubs. I'd always heard it was good, and now that I'm done with Archer, I'm going to watch Scrubs?
Yes.
Yeah, they're pulling it off Netflix the day after this podcast drops, and I'm in the middle of season 2, so we will see how far I get.
You got sick time. It's a legitimate use.
C2E2 was the same weekend that we did the episode 300, and I saw all of the prints and sketches and stuff that were being done. Matt Wagner, every sketch he did, he took a picture of, and I cried a little inside because there was no way I could get one of them. But all sorts of prints and just a beautiful, beautiful artwork people were showing. C2E2, there was a lot of really good art showing up at that. I don't know if this is a freaking, a geeking, or a what, but this week it was announced that the people who do the Phoenix Fan Fair, which is kind of a comic convention that also is sports cards, and it's set up very differently because in Phoenix it's set up in the baseball stadium. And people have tables, and you just go to the tables where you want to buy stuff. Well, they are going to be doing a comic convention here in the Twin Cities in August. And they are bringing in Jim Lee. That's the big name that they have announced for their convention. So that's going to be interesting.
Where is that?
It's going to be at the River Center.
And I don't think Jim Lee came to town when Nick at the Source for
a poker game.
Well, no, actually there was an auction that the Jim Lee was auctioning off like I'll come and barbecue for your employees thing. And I know it got so high between Nick and whoever he was bidding against that Jim just said, you know what? I'll go to both your stores. So that was kind of a classy thing. And then before that, the last time I recall him, he was at one of the Greenberg 2-day shows that we were talking about, and he didn't do any sketches, although Butch got one. Because Butch just kind of hung around with him.
Because Butch is like that.
Butch is like that. And he's a nice guy. He just hung around and just kind of kept Jim company. And then Jim kind of looked at him and said, give me this. Did a quick Wolverine chewing a cigar line sketch. And I think the reason why Jim doesn't do sketches is because he wants to do it really well. He just doesn't want to, crap something out to crap it out. He wants good stuff done. So it'll be kind of cool. I've heard about that, and I'm curious to see. I know I've talked to the guy, about promoting at the MCBA show. I don't know if he's going to take us up on it or if he's just going to be, I'll ignore the little leagues because I'm the big leagues. But I will say
this: they've got big money behind them.
Oh, I hope it works because we could use something other than Wizard World.
And the last freaking I have is a comic freaking. One of the books, I talk a lot about how I don't like the fact that when that they're expanding all these lines. But one of the books that expanded a line was Silk. And it was a character that kind of was created for Original Sin, and it was a female character who got bit by the same spider as Peter Parker, and she had been kind of in a bunker for 10 years.
It's one hell of a bunker.
And while I don't like the fact that they had this thing where, because of this spider bite and all this, they were drawn to each other, and then now they just don't.
Hell of a spider.
And now they don't talk anymore. I don't like the fact that they don't talk anymore.
Did Peter Parker clean her room?
He must have.
He obviously doesn't listen to our podcast.
Not only did he clean her room, but he may have actually brought her food.
Ooh!
That she asked for.
Oh!
What an asshole.
What?
But the Silk series has ended. It was one of the Marvel books that I really liked because other than the Spider-Woman crossover they did with Spider-Woman and Spider-Gwen and Silk, where they did some bebopping around in alternate dimensions, it's kind of been self-contained. They have wrapped up most of the plot lines that were in it, but it was a fun little comic that you could just read on its own, and I like the character. I hope she doesn't fade into oblivion. Joe, what are you geeking on?
I finally got my shift I've been waiting 14 years to get. I'm off Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And other than having shingles and being shanghaied into a 300th episode, which was cool.
And you got free food.
Yes, thank you. Although you did hog the giant pretzel.
There were two of them.
And when the podcast drops, I've got a bunch of pictures of that episode of us recording it. I'm just going to put it on our Facebook page.
Actually, send those to me so I can put them in the YouTube video.
Okay. And so it's kind of fun. I mean, coming up this Saturday, there's a gentleman who sells a lot. He sells Hot Wheels and die-cast cars the way I do comic books, and I collect them on the side. I mean, there's some that I like. And he's doing his big show. Now, basically, he's taking all his stock and putting it in the garage, and then everybody shows up. And he must do quite well because he does it twice a year. And I'm going to go check that out. And normally I wasn't able to because I had to work, but now I'm finally out. Cory talked about the one con coming up. I'll at least be able to go Friday or Saturday, depending on. I didn't see if it was a 1 or 2 or 3 day show. Yeah, and plus with Free Comic Book Day coming up, I'm free for that. I don't have to use their sick days just to, stay home and watch Scrubs or something stupid. I saw Jim Carlin. Yeah, George Carlin's dead brother. No, Jim Starlin got to go to the Guardians of the Galaxy premiere. And other than our good friend Aaron over in Norway, who's seeing it even as we're recording this here podcast, and she better keep her mouth shut until we get a chance to see it. What is it about Europe that they get to see it a week before we do?
I don't know.
I mean, my daughter saw Avengers 2 weeks before we got to, and she was gracious enough to be quiet about it. Although she didn't go, her place in Italy, they took the train and the channel into England to see it.
Channel.
But she didn't bother taking an extra 45 minutes to go to the Doctor Who store for me.
How dare she?
How dare she? But anyways, Jim gave it thumbs-up reviews. I'm hearing a lot of good press out of that. And, of course, Cory and I are going to check it out on Free Comic Book Day, so that ought to be fun. Another friend of mine, Dan Wiesemeyer, one of the original owners of Hot Comics, went to the Star Wars celebration down in Orlando. And he relayed pictures on Facebook, and he told the story about waiting in line to see Mark Hamill, his childhood hero, and he was able to give him a sketch that he had done on a blank cover doing the Lego version. And if you're friends with Dan, go check out the sketch cover. Just gorgeous. On the back, he's got a stormtrooper taking off the helmet, and it's a Joker underneath. And Mark enjoyed it. And, Cory, you know what Mark said?
Nothing.
Yeah, his voice was shot because he had been talking and doing impersonations the entire time, and he was just down to a whisper. So that was but Dan was able to talk with him, have a few minutes, and it sounds like Mark's a gracious guy. And Dan had a great time just looking at all the stuff. Picked up he stayed, I think he said like 12 hours or 16 hours in line to get to the big exhibit hall because it was rumored the panel would be incredible. And it was, because George Lucas came out. I don't know of Lucas ever doing panels except for like when he was trying to push the prequels, and Harrison Ford was there, and just a lot of fun. And I appreciate Dan sharing it with us on Facebook because Lord knows I ain't ever going to get to it. Of course, if I keep my weekends off. Anyways, one of the days off when I was sitting at home with a splitting headache, I was able to watch the first episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 on Netflix. And it starts out kind of slow. I was a little worried they blew the whole budget on Will Wheaton's appearance and Aaron Gray. But once they started commenting, it was hilarious. And, it's always funny because I gotta kind of watch, because even as bad as the movie is, part of me wants to watch the narrative and just, guys, shut up. And then I realize, no, what they're saying is more interesting than the movie. So, seriously, if I had a Deadpool movie going, I would call these guys, dudes, I need you to do something for me. So I was reading online, again, there's an old magazine called, I think, Shadis, S-H-D-I-S, used to be a gaming magazine, and Jolly Blackburn did a cover for it, spoofing MSK, where they were like spoofing some D&D things, and he contacted the producers and said, "Can we do it?" And he goes, "Yeah, that would be great, but we want to write the caption." So, and to find out what he did, go check out his Facebook page because he had it posted. It was just funny stuff. So, a lot of fun stuff going on. My wife and I have stopped watching MASH finally, and we're back to watching Frasier, which I'm actually reinterested in. We stopped for a while because we were kind of getting bored with it. But in episode 5, he loses his job season 5, he loses his job on the radio show, and the dynamics of the show change. And it's fun, and I can't wait because I know it goes for 11 seasons. So we'll see what's happening. The other thing I find interesting about Frasier is that they don't go... Yeah, he does some goofy things, and you kind of feel embarrassed for him and you feel bad for him. But they don't go all out. Just when you think they're going to go one way, they go somewhere else. So they're not like they're using, how would you say it? It's a setup, but they're not going for the cliche. They're not doing the easy out. They're actually going somewhere that at least I'd never seen before, at least in half-hour sitcoms. So having fun watching that. Cory, what you geeking on?
One of my favorite shows, a show that I can actually point to and say, that show changed my life, is back.
Uh-oh.
This seems to be the year of returns. Iron Chef has returned. And one of the things I find interesting is, Iron Chef, there was the Japanese version, then they did the American version, and the American version didn't get canceled. It just kind of faded away where they do fewer and fewer episodes each season until finally it's just they're not doing them anymore. That was kind of the first cooking show I ever watched, and the reason I would watch it, I remember it was 1999. So many things happened in 1999. my son said, "Oh, you've got to watch this show." And I was like, "What is it?" And I started watching it, and it's like, well, this is a cooking show, but they're treating it like it's a sporting competition. And it's really weird and dubbed, and I thought it was goofy, but then once you buy into it, you're like, oh, this is cool. And that's where I started learning about cooking techniques rather than, we're going to have macaroni and cheese with broccoli in it. There we go.
I'd eat it.
Well, yeah, but it's like, hey, I'm a great dad. I cook that. To, starting to make soups and starting to make other things and starting to get experimental with food. And I became a huge fan. I still remember my son and I, we were at Byerly's one time, and we're like, well, this is a high-end grocery store. We can finally find out what some of this stuff is. What's foie gras? Oh, it's pureed duck liver. No, goose liver. Yeah, we're not eating that. Nope. What is this? What is this? And we found out what a lot of the ingredients they used were. And one of my best friends in the world, who's a high-end chef in Amsterdam, one of the things when we met, she said that she was going to Le Cordon Bleu, and we started talking about cooking. And I was able to understand what she was talking about because from Iron Chef, I'd gone to learning about Alton Brown, and from Alton Brown, I learned all this stuff about cooking, so that when I talk to someone who cooks for a living, and I'm not talking, the person who, well, here's your tray of hot dogs, and here's another tray of baked beans, and here's another tray of this. No, I'm talking somebody who, in a high-end hotel will spend the night making 1,000 croissants by hand. I know that world. And I was able to talk with her about that, and that's kind of how I got to know her. But Iron Chef is back, and I'm very excited about it, and I hope that it means that, right now it's the Iron Chef gauntlet where, you start with this many chefs, and then you get down to one, and if they beat all the Iron Chefs, they get to become an Iron Chef. I hope this means they're bringing back the regular Iron Chef show. Joe talked about Mystery Science Theater 3000. He watched the first one. I've watched the first 4. And I absolutely love it. It does, they say you can't go home again, and I've seen some TV series where they bring the TV series back and it doesn't work. This works. This is fun. It's goofy. It's smart and stupid at the same time, which is what Mystery Science Theater 3000 always was. They picked a really good batch of movies. My favorite so far, and it may be one of the best ones they ever did, is Kray Wilderness, which is one of these ultra low budget family movies that was like direct to DVD in the late 80s about a kid and his relationship with Bigfoot. But they've also got a movie that was directed by Irwin Allen's kid, one of the 70s disaster movies called Avalanche. And it's Rock Hudson and Mia Farrow showing that, wow, I guess Rock Hudson was gay because he had literally no chemistry with any of the female stars. And then this will be the most controversial thing that I've said on the show in hours. I read Secret Empire number 0. I am so excited about this crossover. I am so excited about this. I've gone back. If you have Marvel Unlimited, they've got The Road to Secret Empire. And they show that literally the seeds for this were put in Uncanny Avengers number 1 that Joe talked about earlier. It's been in the planning that long. And the whole this means Cap's a Nazi. I would like to remind people that Hydra existed back in the Egyptian times, if you've read Jonathan Hickman's S.H.I.E.L.D. series. But Captain America's plan goes into effect in Secret Empire number 0. I'm not going to spoil any of it other than you do not want Captain America as your enemy. Things look bleak, and that's what it should be. It should be where the heroes have their backs up against the wall, and you have no idea how they're going to get out of it. It's so much fun. It's so well done. And the whole backlash just makes no sense to me. And people I know and respect are just saying, well, I'm not going to read it because I don't want to read Cap as a Nazi. It's not. Cap, the universe has changed. And one of the things that I find the most interesting is the Marvel Universe was a universe in which Hydra won World War II. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. was able to use a cosmic cube to change that. And now now Hydra's using a cosmic cube to try and change it back. And when you have cosmic cubes and things like that, you're always messing with reality. But I like the idea of there are layers upon layers of all these different things that these cosmic cubes have been doing. And with Marvel saying there's not going to be any line-wide crossovers for at least 18 months, this is going to be a way to end it with a big bang. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for over an hour and a half.
Good for you.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
The temporal differential we call wakefulness is the cosmic interaction of subatomic particles operating in the quantum field. The quantum leap represents a fundamental universal constant that we can only speculate upon in the macro scale of waveform frequencies. Cory, hit my music.
I thought Quantum Leap was a TV show by David Belisario.
And the guy who played D-Day on Animal House was God.